Hello, and welcome to the Unsung Cyber Heroes podcast. I'm your host, Gary Berman. Today, we've invited an amazing group of thought leaders in cybersecurity to discuss the future of online education and answer some important questions, like how do we navigate transitions to online learning? How do we best protect children online? What can we do to address online learning needs in underserved communities? What's the best way to inspire students to pursue STEM classes and careers in cybersecurity? How do we, as the cybersecurity community, address the need for more diversity and inclusion? All this and more on today's show. I'd like to start by welcoming and introducing our amazing group of guests today for the Unsung Cyber Heroes podcast. First, we have Davina Pruitt-Mentle, the academic lead at the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education. Kelvin Coleman is the executive director of the National Cybersecurity Alliance and the Force Multiplier behind the Cybersecurity Awareness Month. And we have Heather Ricciuto, who is the academic lead at IBM. Last but not least, Guerry is the founder of the Institute for Responsible Online and Cell Phone Usage, best known as IROC2. Hi, Davina.
Hi.
Why don't you share your origin story and why cybersecurity education became the path for you?
Oh, okay. So I think originally we talked about what your interest in education was. And so there, what I was going to highlight is I can remember being involved in education from the start. I've taught at a 4-year liberal arts college, a research institution, several community colleges, and high school. And I've taught biology, physics, majority of the time chemistry. And then while teaching at University of Maryland, College Park in the School of Education, really was able to slip into the research in STEM and STEM instructional strategies, and through that, the connection with technology. And that's how serendipitously I ended in cybersecurity.
Wow, we're going to come back to the conversation regarding STEM because it's incredibly important, and I think you're uniquely qualified, to offer some insight into it and what we can do about it. Hi, Kelvin. How you doing?
Doing well, Gary. How are you?
Good, thanks. How did you get involved in children and education and cybersecurity?
Well, I was once a child, so some qualification there.
Wait. By the way, Kelvin, here's my first provocateur comment.
Yeah.
I'll do the comedy and you do cybersecurity. That
well,
in our lane.
Wasn't meant to be funny, but okay, I will be careful. No, I had a great career at the Department of Homeland Security, and one of the best bosses I've ever had in my life, Jenny Minna, who's now at U.S. Bank, asked me during the beginning of the Obama administration, hey, what are we doing with state and local and cybersecurity? No idea, not my area. And she said, well, now it is your area. And that started off a wonderful odyssey of just finding out around the country what state and local folks were doing to mitigate against the challenges that come with cybersecurity. And from there, parlayed, FireEye and the White House, and now the National Cybersecurity Alliance. And in between all those times, able to talk to students of all ages. And so very excited to be doing that. And certainly, it's been very fulfilling. So it's kind of my story.
And speaking of your story, thank you so much for making some time. I know that you're going to have to jump off a little bit early. So let me just, ask a question of you as I really come to know you. What is your mission in your life? Why are you doing all this?
Yeah, well, mission in life and why I'm doing is a little different, but mission in life is to build partnerships, to bring the right people together for the right issue. And while that sounds kind of more philosophy than technology, it still is the truth. And I think as I look at technology, I look at it in 3 pieces, right? Products, processes, and people. We make some very good products in this country and around the world as it relates to emerging technology, cybersecurity, and certainly process-wise, I think the United States does a really great job there, from IBM to IROC to certainly NICE, developing and helping people through the process piece. The people piece, I think that's the one that we underestimate, certainly undervalue, in terms of training and awareness and making sure folks are educated. And particularly as we talk about kids, right? For years we told kids to look both ways towards across the street, stranger danger. So many things that we warn kids of in the physical world, and they're much more in technology these days, fortunately, unfortunately, than the physical world. And yet I don't think we're yet there as a society, that culture change, that behavior change, to make sure our children and to make sure adults even are looking both ways before they sign on to a particular website or answer a particular email, to make sure that it's safe and secure. And so that's, bringing people together, those right partnerships to make sure those messages are getting out there. That is certainly one of my life's goals, and something the National Cybersecurity Alliance, that's what we specialize in.
And you, of course, have staysafeonline.org, and maybe you can explain to our audience, what you're doing there and what makes sense for people to understand.
Yeah, the National Cybersecurity Alliance, you can find us at staysafeonline.org. We are the model public-private partnership that literally goes out to what we call CEA, right? Convene, certainly make sure we educate and make sure that we are, amplifying those messages that are coming from, IROC, like I said, or NICE or IBM, to make sure that, we're getting those messages out there for people to hear and to understand. We have 32 companies, many of which are found in the Fortune 100, who partner with us, as well as a very robust partnership with what's called the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency over at the Department of Homeland Security, led by Chris Krebs, who was actually on our board at one time. And so my very mission is to do exactly what we've discussed before, certainly with Rich and you, Guerry, in terms of building those partnerships that can really make a difference. Last thing I'll say is that, again, some people look at the partnership side and the people side as sort of the soft, that's really not going to solve it, Kelvin. I counter with the bad actors. They're working together. They're collaborating. They're communicating. They're coordinating. They're certainly partnering, in making sure that they get the best product, for what they're trying to do, their nefarious intent. Why shouldn't we be that much better at the partnership thing? So.
Well, to that end, just on a personal and maybe professional note, you and I had a brief conversation, but the image of the four of you together comes to mind. A new comic series, the Force Multipliers, and so welcome aboard. You're all in it, whether you do it or not. So, anyways, Kelvin, thanks for what you do. If you have to jump off, we're grateful for you spend some time. And now we'll turn it over to Heather. Heather, what inspired you to get involved in education and academics?
Yeah, well, it's sort of an interesting story, I suppose, because I've been in tech my entire career. In fact, I've been at IBM my entire career. But throughout my life, I've always been interested and involved in leading others, getting others interested in worthy causes, bringing people together. I'm just a connector by nature. And like many folks working in cybersecurity, I didn't start out working in cybersecurity. I spent most of my career in supply chain project management. But like many of us at IBM, we move around a lot, and I found myself in our IBM security business unit several years ago. And it was at that time, about 5 to 7 years ago, when I began to understand that the cybersecurity skills gap was so huge, a much larger challenge than the skills gap in general across tech. And on top of that, we had such a large gender gap, a much larger gender gap again than other areas of tech. And so that really pushed me to get involved and figure out what I could do to attract new talent, not just to IBM, but into the cybersecurity profession at large. And, I've always wanted to kind of put myself out there a little more outside of IBM than I had up until recent years. And so I just expressed an interest in getting involved with things like campus recruiting, public speaking, writing blogs, just doing something that made me feel like I was making a difference and having a voice. And that's what ended up, leading to the job that I have now, which is a full-time role leading academic outreach for IBM Security. So.
And that really comes from the top. Your CEO, I believe she's retiring soon.
She has officially retired, but she remains our executive chair. So.
And really set the tone, the corporate culture, so that you could accomplish your mission, right?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Ginny Rometty is who you are speaking of course, Guerry, and she's very passionate about education and education for all, and people of all means, and in particular, of course, STEM education.
Yeah. And so last but not least, Rich, you and I had the pleasure of meeting, some years ago, and Rich was the very first person in the cybersecurity ecosystem that I ever shared my improbable journey into this world with. And thanks for believing in our mission, and it's a privilege to have you here. Tell us what got you into children and going to 200 plus schools every year.
Yeah, it actually happened by accident. I think Kelvin might be aware of this story. So, but for everybody watching, I mean, long story short, I was in tech right out of college, taught myself how to code, took a job with an interactive firm when there was very few people marketing for websites. Part of network buys, we were starting to learn about things like child pornography sites because our clients' ads were showing up in these sites on random network sites. So very quickly as a marketer, I started learning about this darker side of the web. And the security issues that come with that. If you fast forward many years, I had my own firm. One of my clients was juvenile safety or child safety. A school not that far from where I live must have looked us up or knew we had something to do with kid safety, but they were looking for a speaker for internet safety. And they must have found us because we were an internet marketing firm with a kid safety client. So anyway, long story short, they said, would you come and talk about sexting? The joke I always make, it's not really a joke, it's true. I really thought they were kidding. I thought it was a prank call when they said the word sexting. I had no idea what they were talking about. But I went in and I talked to them anyway about technology, and I explained to them, I'm going to come in and I'll talk about technology and how you can use it as a tool to be, great and open windows of opportunity. But I'm not going to spend time talking about that word because, in my opinion, talking about that word for 60 minutes is not going to give anybody the information to not be the victim of some other word I never heard of. So I went into the school, talked to the kids. When I left, I was petrified at how little, and this is kind of what Kelvin was saying about people, how little they really knew about technology. And so I started doing some research. What is out there for people? And there's a lot of organizations that have been around since 2009 when we started, Common Sense. There's a lot of companies, but a lot of what I was finding was reactionary. And I'm like, we're waiting to pass out the matches, burn down the house, slap a label on that, and then come in and have an assembly about it. But only after so many people got hurt. Like, why are we waiting to do that? It's like, again, going back to what Kelvin was saying, why are we waiting for the car to run somebody over to teach them look both ways? And anyway, so long story short, after about a week of just doing research and seeing how little information from where we come from, the behavioral standpoint, was out there for preventative nature, I decided to change my life. So I shut down my agency and resigned my clients, and we started this nonprofit. And so, yeah, here we are 11 years later, just trying to help people become statistics of promise, not pitfalls, as we continue to evolve with digital tools.
Yeah, and I think in the last year or two, you won the Anti-Bullying of the Year award?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't like, yeah. So, the Exemplary School Safety Initiative Award, the Anti-Bullying Award, and I forget, there was another one, but it's on our website. I'm not, yeah.
You know, one of the amazing things that is for me is just an absolute privilege to listen and learn from all of you, and is this common thread of humility, you know, that you have. But I know that each of you have done so many incredible things, you know, that you just don't take credit for, you know, or you just keep moving on. So with that in mind, Davina, you've had a very interesting, you know, pathway. You have a PhD. Was it in mathematics?
Nope, in ed tech policy.
Okay, that's even
Education.
cooler. I mean, you know, so how, you know,
I don't know, mathematics is pretty cool.
well,
But
yeah,
it's not in mathematics.
but I mean, you know, you have had this pathway of teaching the types of courses that, for many of us, you know, appear very difficult. You know, chemistry and physics and mathematics. What lessons can you impart to our audience, whether they be teachers or students or parents or cybersecurity professionals, you know, on how to encourage math to be cool? You know, that STEM is a cool thing, and for children of all ages.
Yeah, so I could talk about STEM education and STEM literacy for weeks and weeks, but I won't do that. But I will say what has been really interesting is to see kind of the evolution of the term STEM. So when you look at historically some of the economic and political factors that influence educational reform, and in the US, the pendulum swings back and forth from one direction to another. But you know, there was the back to fundamentals approach after World War II, and then it lasted until the 1950s, and then Sputnik caused the nation to go into this science and engineering flurry, and then in the 70s and 80s we swung back to equity-based and individualized instruction, and then with the technology explosion, and along with several reports like Rising Above the Gathering Storm and so forth, there was a shift back to what we called science, mathematics, engineering, and technology, which that was SMET was the acronym, which wasn't really, that was hard to kind of roll off the tongue.
SMET.
So it wasn't until Judith Romilly came up with, she was with the National Science Foundation, started talking about STEM, so STEM, the science, technology, engineering, and math, which seemed to roll off the tongue a lot better. But the approach was to create a new way of learning, a new way of instructing. It was an approach to have our workforce be competent for a global society. And it was trying to figure out a way to teach interdisciplinary. And I think what has happened is, so you brought up STEM, what's happened is over the years, what has happened is that folks have started to think of science separate from technology, separate than engineering, separate from math, and they've become this sort of siloed discipline. And that was not the intention of STEM to begin with. STEM literacy is supposed to be a way of preparing our citizens to really tackle challenges of a competitive and constantly changing global economy. What's nice about the STEM flavor is that it resonates well with students. Students always ask that question, you know, why do I have to learn this? When am I ever going to apply this in the real world? Well, if approaching it through STEM instructional strategies, that application is automatically put into place. But what has happened is we have shifted over and started teaching science as a silo, mathematics as a silo. So hopefully we have swung back and swung back to teaching sort of this interdisciplinary approach. And in doing so, I think that will really attract a lot more more students to engage in these areas.
You know, Davina, Heather just said something a number of very interesting things, but one word that really comes to mind that's germane right now is this notion of a pause. So given COVID-19 and the rapid change in the world, everybody moving to online, you know, what is yours and IBM's view? How are you handling this, or how are you planning to be on the leading edge, you know, of helping underserved people have technology, or to make it safe from a cybersecurity perspective? It's so complicated.
Yeah, and that's a very deep question, Gary. So, you know, a lot of enterprises like IBM, we've had free educational resources for some time that we offer, in particular to accredited educational institutions around the world. So take, for example, at IBM, we have our IBM Academic Initiative. We've been doing a number of things to promote those resources, make sure that the public is aware that they exist, and they can, this is probably the best time to take advantage of those free learning resources. But not only that, we and other companies have opened up additional resources with free access, you know, resources that normally do have fees associated with them, as a way of helping the world to you know, have access to educational resources, and you know, regardless, as I was referring to earlier, of economic circumstances, and particularly right now, of course, because a lot of people are struggling financially given the financial impacts of COVID-19. So that's one of the biggest things we've been doing, and of course, like I said, promoting, making sure people are aware, whether that's through social media or you know, directly reaching out to contacts that we have at educational institutions, or through organizations like NICE. So NICE just put up a new webpage recently that lists a number of free and low-cost resources that are available to the public, and it's a great resource, and I would encourage folks to go visit that webpage as well.
So Heather, do you have any questions for Davina? Like, you know, while we're all here, you know, I don't want to try to create some kind of joint venture or something, but what else can the two of you do to, you know, kind of help this mission? Is there anything you want to ask one another now?
Well, I mean, honestly, we've been working together for some time. Davina and I, and IBM and NICE have been working together on a number of fronts. So for example, you know, NICE has a number of working groups. Of course, Davina leads the NICE K-12 working group. I serve as a member of that, and we collaborate on a number of things. For example, we've worked together to host some Cyber Day for Girls programs in various cities, particularly wherever the NICE K-12 conference is taking place. We'll host a Cyber Day for Girls together in that city. So that's just one example of collaboration. And I think, you know, before Kelvin left, he alluded to the importance of collaboration between academia, industry, and government. I don't know that he exactly, you know, put it in those exact words, but collaboration is extremely important in educating the world on cybersecurity, both, you know, from a personal perspective, as well as from the perspective of all the opportunities that exist for our children out there in the cybersecurity profession. So it's really important that we, you know, in this area, we don't compete, we work together to address the issues.
So, I mean, I'm a guy, so I have no credibility to ask this question or answer it. You know, so Davina, let me ask you, what can we do to get more girls to take STEM, to get more women in cybersecurity? You know, this has been a topic that's widely known and widely discussed at panels all over the place. What can we actually do?
You know, there's been a lot of research that has looked at not only getting women and underrepresented groups into STEM careers, if you will, and from that, we know a couple of things that have bubbled to the top. And one is that it really takes a holistic approach. So partnerships is one thing. You know, we can't just have the educational system do it on its own. It doesn't work. We can't just have parents trying to do it. Or industry. It really takes a big village to try to encourage all students, but particularly underrepresented students, to go into these fields. We also understand that besides really making opportunities available and at a young age, but we also know that it has to continue on. So one thing that we, in the educational community, there could be grant funding that allows a program, whether it be an after-school program or something in school, or you know, a community-based program, and students sign up for like a summer program. Well, that's great, but we know that a one-time intervention has very little impact on following through. Will that make, you know, entice students to go into it? So it's encouraging from the onset when they're really young, elementary, all the way up through. So even if you're doing robotics, you have to start young and then continue up. If you're doing something in cybersecurity, whether it be, you know, drones competition or cyber defense competitions, or even cryptology competitions, there's all sorts of different activities. It has to be more than a one-time intervention. We also realize that we should build on what research has proven to be successful strategies instruction-wise. So in all of these areas, you know, more hands-on, more team approach in particular aspects, making it fun, but also with the younger students today, it's how does this impact, what type of social impact am I, social good am I doing in the approach? Well, interestingly enough, in the K-12, we have a lot of efforts going on in K-12, and we really don't have a problem getting students. Now, going into college is not the means to end all. There's other options into the career fields besides just 2- and 4-year institutions. Getting students and girls, women, to sign up for degree programs in college is not the problem. The problem is keeping them there after their freshman year, because something is happening in that freshman experience where around 60% is somehow leaving that. They're either leaving completely, or they're leaving and going into another another area, another top, you know, focus area. So, you know, I think I'm all for K-12 and anything we can do in that K-12, but I think at the same time, we need to figure out what's happening in that freshman, sophomore year, because we can do all the bells and whistles we want to, and all we're going to cause is a bigger bottleneck if we don't figure out what's happening at that collegiate level as well.
Well, we'll have another show,
yeah.
a show based on that. It's worthwhile. So speaking of worthwhile, Rich, you know, you have this very unique body of experience of being incredibly hands-on, literally boots in the ground, you know, for all these years, traveling to over 200 schools face to face with children and parents and teachers. You know, what are some of your big takeaways from the state of technology and, you know, and the way kids use, you know, smartphones and technology? You know, how's all that going? What's going to happen, you know, in the future?
Well, it's interesting. So first off, yeah, there's no one, like, we don't just go in and leave. You know, there's got to be continuous reinforcement. So a lot of times those schools that I go to, a lot of times it's the same school every year, every other year. And I'm going in to basically build upon the things that we leave behind for reinforcement. I mean, basically the biggest the biggest thing that we see is that when a new app or something like that comes out, a lot of people are focused in on the app, and we kind of come in and we say, look, the app is irrelevant. It's the mindset that you're applying to that technology that really makes the most sense. Because if you look at, like, I use fire a lot, right? So like I have a lighter here, right? If you know anything about our organization, you know I always use fire. And the reason I use fire is because we installed what we call a heat consciousness, understanding of how to use heat, right? This could be a candle, it could be a book of matches, it could be a light, it doesn't matter what it is. The tool is irrelevant as soon as this comes out of it. Once this comes out of it, you have to have a mindset to understand that if you put a marshmallow over this, it's going to be awesome. And if you put your hand in it, it's going to hurt. The tool becomes irrelevant when the element comes out. And so what we try and help people understand, and help schools and parents and teachers understand, is that your app and your tool are irrelevant. They are always going to change. But the mindset you apply to that tool, regardless of what it's looked like or what it's called, is the way in which you're going to open a window or close it. And there's a variety of windows you can open, and there's a variety of windows you can close. And so from a cybersecurity standpoint, you know, we don't come at it the same way like everyone on this panel basically would come at it. We don't dive in and say, this is how you keep things secure. You know, we'll touch on things like VPNs and not using public Wi-Fi unless you have the VPN, things like that, that we all understand cybersecurity. But we come at it from a different perspective, from a behavioral perspective. Your behavior is going to determine your risk. And you have to understand that what you do online, you're going to help determine your risk level. And there's no way to have no risk. You know, I just was asked the other day about kids online. And I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent. I apologize.
No, it's great.
The other day, somebody asked me about, are kids online safer because they're online so much more? And the way I look at it is like, you know, we have this social contract when we're driving. There's those 2 yellow lines, right? And we all just hope that everybody's going to stay on their side. And it's because we were taught to do that. And we understand what can happen if we cross those yellow lines. But just because we have that social contract and we understand how to drive, even if we're driving defensively, you can't stop the drunk driver from coming at you. You can't stop the texter and driver from coming at you. What you can do is you can drive defensively to do your best to keep your risks low. But there's risk in anything. And so if we bring in that to technology now and what we're going through with COVID, everybody's online time has gone up. Everyone's time has gone up. And when time goes up, we're on this extended road trip, if you will. You know, the 5-minute ride to the supermarket, you might pass one drunk driver. The 15-hour car ride,
Well,
you might pass a lot more.
Excuse the interruption. Do you happen to know off the top of your head, or does anyone else on the panel know the number of hours that, you know, people are spending online now?
I do not. Yeah, that'd be an interesting study. Do any of the ladies, do you know?
No.
So
No, I
the
haven't seen any
the
stats.
Pew Internet Life Research Project has the data on that, and
Okay.
it's pretty remarkable, especially for the youth. But they do an annual time spent online.
We'll have to
So we'd
see
have to
what
look
that
at
is,
what
but
the
It's going to be a fascinating number. Yeah.
I know. I'll put that in the show notes. I was just curious because, you know, I'm sure what you're saying is true, and you know, and what does that mean? You know, I mean, are we going to, from an educational standpoint, let me just put this out to everyone, from an educational standpoint, are we going to lose our humanity?
That's
Can
great.
you clarify? What do you mean by that?
We're not, well, I'm asking these big questions, sorry. In a 25-minute podcast, what could possibly go wrong? No, but I mean, you know, human connection. So, you know, a student of any age gets social skills by being in physical contact with the children at school, in a building, and teachers and all that. And now, at least for the short term, that's all changing pretty quickly. You know, are we going to be putting, is this circumstance putting, you know, kids around the world, you know, at a deficit about what it means to kind of be a human being?
Well, you know, hopefully this isn't going to be a forever situation, first of all. But secondly, you know, as somebody who works from home, and you know, I have done for some time, I think that that's actually one of the arguments for using video, because using video on, you know, like we are here, makes a huge difference in the social connection. And so I think it's really great that a lot of school boards in the whole, you know, in being forced to educate students in their homes, they are using video conferencing platforms to do that and help stay connected with their students, as well as keep the students connected with each other.
Mhm. And Davina, along that lines, you have a powerful academic grounding for your opinions of things. What would you advise our audience on how to optimize technology, and how to just get the most benefits from it, and to avoid, some of the challenges that may exist?
Under these or all, or because I think one of the really interesting things under this current situation is, excuse me, is understanding that, with the last federal data set that we have, there's close to 17-20% of the population that does not have internet access in the US, which is pretty remarkable. You just kind of assume everybody has it. And the majority of those folks are from, households that are 50K or less, rural areas. So just kind of flipping a switch and say, well, no big deal, we're going to just do things online. Well, that didn't work out so well. All it did was shine kind of a bigger light on one of the issues that the educational system has been voicing over the years is, hey, we really need help in getting things connected. We've had school systems trying to figure out how to continue on with their studies, but students didn't have connection. So some school districts actually put like hotspots on a school bus and then pulled it into the school parking lot, but then expecting kids to go to that parking lot and do all of their studies in a car in the park. And then other schools have said, well, we have alternatives. We can do the paper version of it. That's not equitable access. So one of the key components, I think, is going to be access to all. I think the other thing that has been highlighted is teaching online is much different than in a face-to-face setting. And a lot of the educators, and this is even at the faculty level, even at our universities, really don't have the knowledge of how to, they're kind of going back to that, less of that STEM literacy and how can we make things innovative and a team-based approach and problem-based and all of these fun ways to do it, and go back to the old version of, okay, we're going to do a rote learning. We're going to have a talking head. You're going to listen to me. You're going to take some notes. You're going to do a worksheet. And so we've reverted back to how we used to teach. Wow. And so I think we're going to have to really look into schools of education and their training for teachers, or at least make sure that everyone has taken a course online so they know how to experience it. The other thing we're finding is some of the kids are not really, they need to learn how to focus their concentration, to be, time on task, that type of thing. So they also need a little help in, if we decide that we want to pursue, it's something that's going to take a little bit of time to switch on, even to a hybrid version, to kind of fast track that a little bit more. But definitely instructional strategies, having kids experience it more so they are familiar with it and don't feel lost, so they just check out, and then teachers actually understanding. We've had some collegiate students say, if this is what I have to go through, I think I'll just take a semester off. I'd rather take a semester off than participate in and have to go through this sort of agony of this instruction. Wow. So we're going to have to think through how to get these faculty up to par. Just kind of an anecdote here. My daughter, who is in her senior year, when they were closing down the campus for spring break, they added on an extra an extra week. And somebody asked her, they said, well, why did they extend the week? And they said, well, they had to go back and teach the faculty how to use the internet. Now, she meant that facetiously, but it was actually true. They had to, do a little boot camp for the faculty to learn how to think through how to move things online.
Wow, amazing. I mean,
I see that firsthand every day because I have a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old. So I'm not disparaging the teachers or anything, but I see it every day. They're back to the talking head training, do the worksheet, done, and I think that everything you just said is spot on. I mean, I literally see it every day.
well, Rich, I mean, what would you do differently and how would you do it?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're adjusting right now as well. So, I mean, every day we were literally in schools. This year is just going to be, there's just too much going on. I think every teacher at this point is just trying to come up with their own lesson plans and get through the end of the year. Yeah. So we're planning on basically revamping and preparing for virtual learning. And so we have, online videos and things of that nature that we would normally use as reinforcement material after a live program. And we go in and try and install this thought system. We call it a digital consciousness. So we're going to basically, we started reaching out to a lot of schools who some have already, had us come in and some we're going to try and work with to see if we can't do, something like this on a larger scale, larger green screen, and go that way. It's an interesting, I used to say a few years ago, I'm not sure if you're familiar with like HoloLens and some of the cool technologies out there where you can basically just virtually be anywhere when you put the glasses on. I don't know if anybody's watching and they want to put a project together, but how amazing would it be for education if you could literally just ship all of your students a pair of glasses, and when they put on the glasses, they're seeing almost like VR, they're seeing the virtual classroom. They're actually immersed in that classroom, and you can do an assembly, you can do anything. It's all remote.
Well, if you want to do something interesting, if you just kind of look down like at your desk, and Heather, if you can just kind of look up at the sky, we'll do a Brady Bunch thing. And
yeah.
You can ask if they ask IBM if they know anything about technology. I'm just saying, you want to try that, Heather? You have to go like this and look up, and But I don't know. IBM must have some kind of virtual technology, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of possibilities, where it basically just be virtual learning, but with the glasses on, you would be almost immersed in that learning. So instead of it being a talking head on a screen, you are three-dimensionally in the room. We used to say that for for an assembly, instead of all the kids coming into a theater, or instead of us being in one theater, you could do it from one location, and whoever had the technology would all be seeing it at the same time. Again, it kind of advanced for two dimensions on the screen. It's just,
well, I mean, just having listened and learned from all of you during this brief time, I have to tell you, I'm encouraged, because when smart people get together, good things happen. And it's especially important right now that we're positive, that we run towards this issue rather than away from it. And there are all different ways that you can go about doing that. So, Davina, do you have a closing thought? Is there anything else that we didn't get to cover yet that you'd like to?
So I was just searching here with the Pew Internet Research Center, and Common Sense Media did some research and came up with, I think, 9 hours is the average for kids spending online. But also was just looking here at the broadband research, and it breaks it down into this is 2020 data. It breaks it down into very specific things on LinkedIn, Pinterest, Snapchat, the whole thing. So those are two sites that you could find out how much people spend online.
Yeah, and with that in mind, if you would all be kind enough just to send me whatever contact information that you want, your websites or any show notes, things like this. We'll make sure to put that at in our show notes at the end of this broadcast. But thanks for having that immediate answer. Yeah. Heather, is there anything that we missed, or you want to make sure that we cover or amplify it based on what you do?
Well, I was sitting here thinking about some of the questions you had posed to us, when we spoke prior to getting together here. And one that comes to mind is what keeps us up at night. And I spent some time thinking about that, and it's not what keeps me up at night. It's what is on my mind all day, every day during my waking hours, which is, are we doing the right things? Are we doing enough? What am I doing enough? What more can I do to address the challenges that we face today in cybersecurity, education, and awareness? And to everyone listening, I would just say, get involved, do something. You, as an individual, believe it or not, you can make a difference, even if you touch one person's life and help educate them about the importance of cybersecurity in our lives.
Thank you for that. Richard?
I'm actually going to echo those sentiments from a parent standpoint. If there's any parents listening to this, communication with your kid right now could not be more paramount, because so we just heard, right, was 9 hours from Common Sense Media. And I'm sure that number is probably going to go up as we continue to proceed where social, educational, everything is online at this point. Communication is paramount. Asking your kids about their day online, communicating with them what they're doing. I mean, you have the time now. Do a TikTok video with them, or at a minimum, just ask them, what the trends are, anything to communicate. If I had $1 for every time a 14-year-old came and told me something that would literally as a parent, it would turn you pale white, it would make your hair stand up. And you ask them, well, how many people have you told? Who have you told? Have you asked for help? And they say, no, I'm a complete stranger to this individual. I cannot tell you now, there's so many things going on and I don't want to be against technology. I love technology. I embrace technology, and I encourage others to use technology. So I don't want it to seem like I'm coming off there, but we are all online right now. So risk levels are going to go up. Risk factors are going to go up. So if you're a parent listening, just take a moment to ask your kids what they're doing. It's really important. I can't stress that enough.
Well, that's a great advice. So, on behalf of the digital universe, thank you all so much for what you do. As I mentioned in the show notes, there'll be ways to learn more about each of their respective missions. And if you have someone that you want to nominate to appear as our guest, just to send me an email at Guerry@cyberheroescomics.com. Thank you for all that you do. Stay safe, stay home.
Thanks, Guerry.
Thanks.
Thank you, Guerry.